Hello, everybody. Hello. Alright. So, I'm going to pull up the Epic Games launcher here. If you guys want to go to the library tab on the left side. This on, Chris? Yeah, it's good. Okay. And then what we're going to do is let's do launch 4.19.2. And we're going to create a sample project. We're going to use the third person blueprint example. So it's got a character in there. You can run around. We're going to use him to test some blueprint stuffs out with. Okay, so here we go. New project. Make sure it's a blueprint one. And let's go change it to third person. And then we're going to make sure it's set for desktop console, maximum quality with starter content. And then let's change the directory to the D drive. And you can make a new folder in here for your project. I'm going to put it under my name, 2018. Actually, I'll do this. Fall 2018. There we go. Intro PP examples. Make sure that your project name doesn't have any spaces in it or special characters. If you want to use multiple words, just capitalize the first letter of each word. And then you can name your project here. I'm going to call mine Intro BP. You can call yours whatever you'd like. And hit create. Does anybody have any experience with programming before? Raise your hand. Any programming experience? What programming languages did you use? C++? Okay. C#, anybody? JavaScript? Okay, Java. Okay. Cool. So the blueprint system is designed for artists and designers to get logic working inside of a game engine without having to write any code at all. It's all visual, so you can see exactly what's going on. Okay, so everybody's got a project up and running. That's good. First thing I'm going to do is go over here to the bottom left where it says Content Browser. Let's click on this little icon so we can see all of our folders here. Yes.
Hey guys, if Josh is moving too quick for you, just raise your hand up. That way he knows to wait on you guys. Okay? So if you guys are behind, if your project's still launching or whatever, there's a lot of technical information in here, so you want to be caught up. So if you're behind, again, just raise your hand so Josh can see if you need to hold on a little bit.
Yeah, let me know if I'm going too fast. I can slow down a little bit. Everybody good? Alrighty. So, let's fly over here with our camera. And let's click on the third person character blueprint. So you click on him, he'll kind of highlight in yellow. Let's press Control B. So that'll find him in the content browser down here at the bottom. And then you can double click and open him up. Yes. You click on him and then press Control B. Left click, not right click. Control B, and then click on him, double click on it in the content browser. Alright, so we have this tab here. I'm going to drag this tab up to the top so I can dock it with my map view so you can use all of the screen space available to you. Alrighty. So there's a couple different aspects to doing blueprints. Whenever you open up a blueprint, it has a bunch of properties that you can change, attributes that you can create yourself to give it a certain type of effect or certain type of logic. So let's click on the viewport right here. And you should see your character, right? So this is where you can view the blueprint that you're making. This specific blueprint class type is a character. So you'll see that in the very top right-hand corner of the screen. It says character as the parent class. There are about 3 or 4 main blueprint types that you will use to create some sort of logic. There's actor, there's pawn, there's character, and then there's game mode, HUD, player controller, and some other different types in there. But we're using a character right now. So we've got our viewport here. And if you look over on this left side, you'll see a bunch of components. And you can click on them, and I'll show you what they are inside of this viewport. So we've got a capsule component. So that's what the character actually bumps into stuff, right? He's got collision. There's an arrow component. Most of the characters will have this little blue arrow. This is telling you which way they're facing in the forward vector. You've got a mesh. This is built into all the characters. They have a 3D model, and they've got animations on it. And then we've got a camera boom and a follow camera. So all those things combined together help create up this blueprint. And let's go back to the event graph now. This tab right here. We can see the logic that's running in the background. To use, zoom around the blueprint graph, you can use the right mouse button. You can kind of drag it around. All right. You can use the mouse scroll wheel to zoom in and out. And if you look at some of these things, they have little gray boxes around them. That's to let you know what kind of logic they're setting up here. So let's look at the one that says movement input. Does everybody see that? Movement input. Okay. Do you see this little red box right here? Yeah. These are called events. And what we do when we script out logic is everything starts from an event. Whether that's when you hit play, there's something called begin play, and the game starts, and then you can have logic running, from left to right after that. You can have it on a key press, or somebody gives input from a controller or some sort of device. You can have an event based off something that happens to one of these components, or something that happens inside of another blueprint. And then what we do from there is create a logic chain with these little nodes. So this is technically a node, this is an event node. And then whatever's connected to it, it'll just kind of go all the way through from left to right and perform whatever action we want it to do. So in this case, there's an input command in the settings that says when I press forward, which would be the letter W on our keyboard, it says it's going to add movement input. And then we have all these pins here to decide what type of movement we want to do. So if we follow the pins this way, you'll see they have different colors on them. Those are for different variable or data types. So it's asking us, okay, which way do you want to move? Which way in the world? So this is a vector, so X, Y, Z. And it's coming to here and says, well, let's go get the forward vector. Which way is it looking? It says, okay, well, what do you need in order to find that out? And this one says, well, we need a rotation. And then it pulls down here and it says, okay, well, let's make a rotation and let's only use yaw. You guys know about like airplanes and stuff. You got pitch, roll, and yaw. So this is asking for the yaw of the character's rotation. So whichever way we're looking, when we press W to move forward, we're going to move in that direction. So that's what that says. And down here this says move right. So instead of moving in the forward vector, we're moving through the right vector, and it's some of the same stuff being used here. So when we hit those keys in the game, the character will actually move, right? Now what we're going to do is this. So we're going to fly the middle of the camera up here, zoom in a little bit. Now what's...
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Would there be a way that you can show them how to, instead of doing the thing inside of the actual character, just putting like a reference point in there and creating a blueprint to like reference inside the character?
Yeah, we can.
You know what I'm talking about? So that way like multiple programmers can work on character at one time.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, I'll do that in a second. I'm gonna have credit pick up here in just a second. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna right click in the background here, and let's type in an event. We're gonna look for begin play. So this is an event that's built into the engine. Click on it. It's red like the other events that we just saw. And this says when we hit play, whatever is connected to this pin right here, this is the execution pin, whatever's connected to this will happen inside of the game, right? So let's do something simple to start with. So I'm going to pull a pin off from this white triangle here. Let's type in delay. And let's select this delay node here. What do you think this is going to do?
Delay the action.
Yes, it's going to make it wait. And you have your number of seconds here. So I'm going to set mine at 3 seconds. And then after that, we're going to go to the next pin. So these read from left to right. You always have to start from an event. Those are usually red or blue. And we move this way. It's going to do this action. So we're going to wait 3 seconds. And then from here, we're going to type in print string. So anybody that's taken the programming classes, do you remember what strings are? What is a string? It's a bunch of text, yeah. And every programming class that you take, the first thing that make you do is always write out something to the console that says hello world. So type in hello world. So when we hit play, it's going to wait for this long, how many seconds you put in here. When it's finished, we're going to print out a string that says hello world. Right? So you essentially have a small logic chain here. Now if you look up in the top left corner of the screen, do you see an orange box with a question mark in it?
Yeah.
Yes. Why do you think it turned orange? Because I made changes. Yes. So click on this right here to compile our changes, and it should turn green, yes? If it turns red, you have an error, and you have to go back and fix it and find out where it is. So as long as you click the box, green, good to go, you can click Save. The little asterisk will go away from your tab here on that blueprint. And then let's go inside of the map. And hit play and look up in the top left corner of the viewport. And see if it prints out your hello world. So mine printed out. You can hit escape, jump out, hit play again, make sure it works. So mine waited 3 seconds and it said hello world. Raise your hand if you got it to work. Just about everybody? Who did not get it to work? Anybody? Had it to work? How many seconds did you type into here?
3.
Oh, you got to, okay, there we go. So it did print out. Cool. Alright, so you've created your first blueprint. Hooray. Real simple. Okay, let's do this instead. Let's get rid of the print string. Let's get rid of that. And let's pull off another pin. And let's type play sound at location. And from this little drop down menu, let's pick which sound you want to do. There should be one that says explosion cue. Do you guys see that?
Yep.
Yeah, select explosion cue. And right here it says location. Let's pull a pin off of that, the yellow one. So locations inside of Unreal are actually 3 what they call variables all put in one. So like the one where you typed in the duration, that is a float variable. That means it's a number with a decimal, so you can have some sort of fractions in there. The yellow ones are for X, Y, and Z, and it's saying, okay, what X, Y, Z location do you want us to spawn the sound at? Do you want to play at? So we're going to type in get actor location. And find this node here, and then click on it. It should look something like this. Cool. So this green pin right here, what variable type was this to hold a number with a decimal? Float. And what about the yellow one to hold an XYZ? Vector. And you'll see a lot of these, they're kind of blue. If you hover over it, it says actor. So that's a reference to something inside of your scene. In this case, it says it's a reference to ourself, so this particular blueprint. So wherever the third person character is, please find the XYZ value and let's play the sound explosion cue at that location, right? So after that, let's do this. Pull off another pin after the play sound, and let's do spawn emitter at location. So emitter is basically just a particle system. It's the same thing. Okay, so at the very top it says emitter template, so that's referring to what type of particle system you want to spawn. So let's change that to explosion. You see where we're going with this? Yeah. Okay, so we filled out that one. What's the next one? It says location. What do you think we should hook that into? Very good. So you can actually pull multiple pins from one node. If it's you can't do it from these white triangle execution pins, but you can do it from the ones that are colored. So yellow, blue, purple, red. You can pull several pins from those. This one's also asking for a rotation. So this is kind of like our vector pin, except it's purple. So whenever you see a purple pin, that's referring to, the X rotation, the Y rotation, Z rotation, which is roll, pitch, and yaw. It's like a plane. And down here it's asking for the scale, which is also a vector, X, Y, and Z, so we're going to leave it at 1, 1, 1 for now. But you could change that to, whatever numbers you want, and they'll scale in those directions, right? Cool. So let's go ahead and hit compile. Make sure it turns green. Hit save again. Now, depending on whether your monitor sound is on, you should be able to hear the sound. But did the explosion go off? Cool. Awesome. Alrighty. So there's a bunch of stuff that you can do in each different type of blueprint. A lot of these nodes, like these things, are built in, but you can also create your own. So let's do this. Let's right click in the background down below here. Let's type in custom event. And we're going to create our own. So it should say custom event 0. And a text box, you can go ahead and rename it. And let's call it, need to call it death. Yeah, we'll call it death. Okay. And I want to pull off another pin. Let's do print string again. And I'm going to say, I died. So this event is separate from the begin plays, completely different. How do you think if we wanted to have this event happen, but have it happen up here? How do you think we could do that? If we wanted to fire this event down here from right here, whoops, from right here, how do you think we should do that?
Attach it to the other wire.
We could. Pull a pin off of this one, let go, and type in the name of the event you just created. What color is this node? Blue. What happens when you double click on it?
It goes to the custom event.
It focuses on this one, right? So now they're connected, kind of like a wireless thing. So we're essentially, this is what they call calling a function or calling an event. So it's going to say begin play, wait for this long, and then we're going to play explosion sound. We're going to play, spawn the particles, and then it's going to say, hey, do this death event, this function, and it's going to come over here and it's going to say, I died. So hit compile, go into your level and hit play. See if it works. So you should see a particle effect, and it should say whatever you typed into that print string in the top left, right?
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah. There we go.
Alright, let's do something a little bit more interesting. Whenever the first time you create a new logic chain, or even if you need to debug, you need to test something to see why it doesn't work, this is the best way to do it because it'll show up on the screen. So if you're like, oh, why isn't this working? It should be working. You can add one of these print strings in. You can type in a text. You can change the color, and you can change how long it lasts on the screen. And that's the easiest way to see if something is actually working or not. Because if it doesn't happen in the level, when you hit play, something somewhere is going wrong, and this is the best way to check. See if it's going right. So I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to do this. Let's pull off a pen. Let's type set simulate physics and click the one that says mesh in parentheses. So it should look something like this. And let's turn on this simulate box. What do you think is going to happen? What does simulate physics mean, do you think?
You can edit what happens during when you press action. So like you could fall
Yeah, kind of.
or where you want.
We'll see how that works in a minute. If you hit play right now, it won't work, but let's change some settings real quick. So let's go to the viewport. Let's click on the mannequin. And I'm going to scroll down here on the right side to a section that says collision. Does everybody see that?
Yeah.
Looks like this. There's like a little yellow box. Each one of these components has a bunch of properties on the right side. These are all variables, right? Some of them are built into the engine. Some are the ones that you create. And then all of these different tabs, you can change their properties. So for his collision, so how he bumps into and interacts with things, we're going to change that a little bit. So you see this little left arrow right here next to collision presets? Click on the drop down. So you should see all this stuff is grayed out. And then let's change this drop down menu to custom. Right? And then all this is available for us to edit now. Where it says collision enabled, it should say query only, right? Change that to physics only. So it says custom, physics only, and where it says object type, it should say pawn, correct?
Yes.
Click on that, and click on physics body. Does anybody see what we're doing with this? Maybe? Yes. Alright. And then I'm going to hit ignore here on the top left corner, and where it says world static, I'm going to turn on block. Yes, we had a question. Your character's doing what now? Oh, he's not moving. Okay. Is the game still running, I think? Hit stop. Yeah, the game was still running. Well, good, that was an easy fix. So turn on block for world static. So that means he's going to bump into things that don't move. And then click on world dynamic for block. And he will block into things that do move. So once you have this custom, physics only, physics body, and over here where it says world static, we're going to click block, world dynamic block, and everything else is set to ignore. Okay? Now go back to your graph and make sure this is set to simulate physics, and that's turned on. And then hit compile, save, and hit play and see what happens. What happened? He ragdolled.
I fell over.
Ah. You should try it while you're running. That has a really funny effect.
Oh god.
1, 2, 3. Oh, that didn't. 1, 2, 3. So we could essentially tell the engine to do whatever you want, right? The sky is the limit. Now there's some nodes that you're going to be using a lot of the time, and there's some that you have to create, and there's some that you have to go online and look up and see where are those things in the editor so I can change those properties, because you can basically access anything that you want to, right? So let's do this. Let's make a pickup that causes him to do that. So when you pick it up, he'll ragdoll and explode. That would be fun. Okay, let's go down in the content browser, down here. Now the way they lay out this example starter content is they have a third-person blueprint folder, right? And then they have blueprints inside of that. I'm going to go up here to content. We're going to right-click in the background. And we're going to create a new folder. And we're going to call this blueprints. And we're going to double-click on it. We're going to right-click here. And we're going to create a new blueprint class. So this little option right here, and you should see a little box that pops up, right? A little square window. It's all of your different blueprint types that you can use. I can't talk. Which one were we just using a minute ago with the third person?
Pawn.
Character.
Character.
So what is the one where the text where it says character? What does it say?
A character is a type of pawn that includes the ability to walk around.
Includes the ability to walk around. Okay, what is a pawn?
It's an actor that can be
Possessed.
and receive input from a controller.
Okay, and then actor is an object that can be placed or spawned in the world. So technically, a character is a pawn, right? Because you can receive input, but it's also an actor, right? So it's basically a subset of each of these things. So the further you go this way, the more specific it is. So here's an example. Which one do you think you would use as a vehicle? If you were to create a vehicle, which one would you use? Pawn, yeah. What about an enemy character? What about like a drone or, I don't know, a pickup or something like that, or a weapon? Actor, right? You see how that works? So you figure out which one you need to start with, and then you select it, and we can go and create it. So I'm going to click on actor, because we're going to create a pickup. Let's call this BP in capital letters underscore pickup base. Do you guys remember in school a long time ago when they talked about, was it biology or genealogy or something like that, and they talked about inheritance? Do you guys remember that a long time ago? So if your parents have red hair and brown hair, you're little likely to have red hair, right? But if they both have red hair, then you're more likely to have red hair, right? That's called inheritance, and it's a parent and child system. We use that in programming and with blueprints to help organize the way that our project works. So there's less work to do for each individual actor, each individual object in the game. So instead of creating, let's say we have a whole list of pickups. You guys have played Unreal Tournament, right, at some point? They have a whole bunch of pickups. They have the U damage, they have the invisibility, they have, I don't know, they have the buffs for shooting faster, the berserk.
The relics, speed, health.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Vengeance.
So instead of creating all those things separately, it's to our advantage to create a master version of that actor, that blueprint, and then when we can create children based off of that type, and then just change the settings. So that way we can, if we need another pickup, we can just create a new one really quick. So In this example, we called it base because this is the parent class. So let's go ahead and open this up. And let's set up the parent, and then we're going to create a child and change the properties. Okay, so when you create an actor blueprint, does it give you anything? No. There's not much in here. All right. Look over here in the top left corner where it says Add Component. We need something to let the player know that he walked into it and picked the, interacted with a pickup. So let's type sphere collision. Is this one right here? Yes. Oh, is there some blue text somewhere towards the top that you can click? Yeah, sometimes it does that. It opens up with properties instead of the actual window. Yeah, so let's add this component, sphere collision. So this is kind of like a sphere, but it's kind of like in wireframe form. Remember when we talked about always starting from events to create logic? Well, this has a bunch of events built onto it, as well as all these other components do. And we can scroll down to the very bottom. If we click on it, you see all these green buttons? These are all the events that you could call on this component. What does the second one say? Begin overlap. So when something else overlaps this sphere, we can have it do whatever we want. Right? So let's click on that button on component begin overlap, and then go to the graph. Yes.
Can't figure out where the search bar is for sphere.
Oh, you have to click on add component and then type in sphere collision.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, one more time. I'll go back to the viewport. Add component, type in sphere collision. Click on it. Click on it here. And in the bottom right corner of the details panel, you want to look for an event called on component begin overlap and click it. And you should have something that looks like this in your graph, right? So here's our event. This is what we start with, right? We always start from events. And something walks into this sphere. There's a whole bunch more variables on this one, right? It's telling you information about that event. This is saying, hey, who overlapped this, this sphere? That would be the other actor. How did it interact with this sphere? These are a bunch of, settings down here that you can change. We're only going to use this one for right now. This is basically like, clue. It's like who done it, right? Who walked through me? So let's pull a pin out, right? And what does the blue pin stand for? What type is that? Actor. See right here it says actor. So it's asking, hey, what actor in the scene walked through this? Well, we want to check and see if it's the player. So I'm going to do this. Set the equals key. And it should say equal object. So if the actor that walked through the sphere equals, what should we put down here? Not self. Yeah, the player. And an easy way that we found to access player number 1 is to type this. Get player pawn. Because sometimes the things that you're controlling are not necessarily characters, but they're always pawns. Right? So click on that. Now if you look at this node here, get player pawn, what does the player index say? 0. So anybody in programming, remember you always start counting from 0? So player index 0 actually equals player number 1. What if we wanted to get player number 2? Player index 1. Did I hurt your brain a little bit? No? Okay, good. He's real honest about it. He's like, nah. Alright. So if the other actor that's walking through the sphere equals player number 1, then we have this little red pin. What do you think this red pin is for? it's a condition. And we call that a Boolean. So a Boolean is basically on or off, true or false, yes or no, right? And we usually hook this into something called a branch. You can also type if when you search for it, and it'll pull up branch. So in programming, you have something called an if statement, and this is asking the program a question, and based on the output, we can either have true or false. So let's hook up this pin here to the branch. Now it says, hey, something overlapped the sphere. Okay, what was it? Well, does it equal the player pawn, that player 1? Yes or no? So should we use true or false after this if we only want it to interact with the player? True. Good. Let's type this. Actually, cast to third person. Yeah, cast a third person character. Now this is asking us, what do you want to cast to a third person character? It's asking for an actor type or an object type in your scene. What do you think we should put into this? Other actor. Because we've already determined, hey, you are a player, right? Yes. Would you mind telling the third person character if you are one, in fact? Please die. I guess we could call that ragdoll because that's what it does. That's more interesting. Alright, so we overlap the sphere with something. This one here. It says, hey, are you a player pawn? Are you player number 1? But of course. So it says, goes to true. It says, hey, are you a third person character? Why, yes I am. Now if you use a cast and you're trying to talk to a specific blueprint type, and it's not the same blueprint type, it's going to go to cast failed. So we could essentially do the same thing here by replacing these 3 nodes with just this. Because that's asking the same thing. Hey, are you the third person character? But what if you're playing a game where you could swap out the character type? That wouldn't necessarily work. Right? So this just says death if you are a third person character. Now hit compile, save, and let's go to the viewport real quick. Let's click on the sphere. Oh, question, I'm sorry, I didn't see the hand. Yes. You have an error. You didn't hook up anything to your object. See where it says object on the cast to third person character? Yes, you have to hook up to the other actor. On the left side where it says other actor. No, it says other actor. It's a blue pen. It's on this, yeah, right there. There you go. Yep, and then hit compile. There you go. Computers are stupid. If you don't tell them what to do, they'll freak out. Yes?
I have everything exactly how you had it, but my character does not fall down.
Your character doesn't fall down?
No, it was everything exactly how you said it.
Okay. Why don't you, does your neighbors work?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just checking if we had it the same.
Okay, yeah, check all the collision settings for the character itself, for the mesh, and make sure that they're exactly the same. And then make sure that simulate is turned on where it says simulate physics. Okay, so let's do this. I want to click on add component. And let's type in static mesh. So a static mesh is just a 3D model. Right? And then I'm going to click on static mesh, and you can name these components to whatever you want. But over here on the right side, when you click on it, it says none. Let's change that to a cube. And let's use the one that says 1 meter cube or 1m_cube. And it's kind of big because our sphere is gone. Let's make it a little bit smaller. Let's make it 0.25, 0.25, and 0.25 for the scale, which is at the very top. Now we're assuming that the player is going to walk into the sphere, right? We don't want them interacting with the cube and bumping into it. So we should probably turn off the collision for the cube, right? Yeah. So let's scroll down here. Once you have 0.25, 0.25, 0.25, X, Y, and Z, it should fit inside of the sphere now, right? Yes. You have a sphere overlapping what now? Just zoom, yeah, you can zoom out. Yeah, there's a little sphere on the inside. That's called the default scene route.
It just looks weird, but
yeah, when you zoom in and out, it'll change the scale. Yes. What size did you put in here for the cube? Put 0.25. It won't show up when you hit play as long as it's smaller than this sphere here, the red one. Then it should be okay. Yeah, so for the static mesh, once you change the scale and it's smaller than this, let's change the collision presets right here. And we're just going to change it to no collision. So nothing can bump into it, nothing can overlap it, nothing. It's just there to look cool. And hit compile. And I don't know about you guys, but I think it's cool when pickups move around a little bit.
yeah.
Let's click add component. Let's type rotating movement. This one right here. Yes. Alright, everybody added the rotating movement component. So this is going to make it spin. And then hit compile. Everybody's green, good to go?
Do we need to edit rotating movement at all?
No, we can leave rotating movement the way it is.
Alright.
Hit compile. Hit save. Yeah, let's go back to the level. Now let's drag in the pickup base. So you get a little pickup here. And then hit play. And go walk into it. What happens? It hurt. Oh, wow, that is a pole vault over there. Oh. Now what's really cool about these is this is called an instance when you place it inside of your level. Have you guys ever played an MMO before? Or Destiny or anything like that? Do you know what an instance is? So what is an instance? It's a copy, and it's separated from the parent. So if you're playing Destiny and you go inside the area and it says no respawning, and have you and your friends in there, it separates the level from everything else in the game. So you're playing by yourself. So when you drag in these copies, it creates a new one every time. So
like a dungeon, sort of.
yeah. So each of these are independent from each other. If I hold Alt and drag in a direction, I can create a whole bunch of them.
Perfect for making a little wall then.
Yeah, so you can make a little level where you have to avoid these things, maybe. You gotta jump over them or something. No, oh, that didn't work. All right, they're all independent of each other.
Oh, I jumped over them. But I died anyway.
Alrighty, let's do this. Let's go back into our pickup real quick. I'm going to get rid of the one that says death and third person character. And we're going to do this. So right click in the background, custom event. Let's just say use pickup for now. What we're going to do is create a child based off of this blueprint. So it has the same exact properties of this, but we can customize them to however we want. So we're going to leave this one empty. We're just going to leave it floating here. And then from right here, where it says true, we're going to do this. We're going to type in use pickup like we did a little bit ago. So we are calling use pickup. So overlap the sphere, it's spinning. Hey, are you player one? Okay, then let's use the pickup. Okay, I'm going to move that down here. Now sometimes if you add a whole bunch of these things, if you go online and look at Blueprint Spaghetti in Unreal 4, I think it's called blueprintsfromhell.com. They're just like, ugh, they're all over the place. Kind of gets hard to see what's going on, right? So, especially when you use, or in a team with other people looking at your code, which is going to happen at some point, or even just for you, it's good to organize these things. So, let's drag a box around all these nodes right here. And let's hit the letter C. What did it do?
Made a box.
Made a box. So drag a box around all those and hit the letter C. Created a comment. So in code, when people write notes about what they're doing, even though if you know how to read the code, you're going to be like, I don't understand what you're using this for. What is this? And you can write a comment. So we'll say player interacts with pickup. And what's really cool about these comments is this. You can hover your mouse over the top gray bar and you can move it around. You can also scale them. So let's say if I wanted to have this node in here, but I still wanted to leave him like right down here, I could change the size on the edges. And then once he's inside, I can drag the entire box. So this helps keep your logic organized, right? Okay, so it says, hey, player one, please use the pickup. And then it goes here, right? Because these are connected, this is the same thing. But it doesn't do anything here. That's okay, because when we hit compile, save, let's go to browse. It'll take us back to the content browser. Let's create a different pickup type. Remember we talked about the inheritance stuff, the parent-child stuff? Let's right-click on this parent or this pickup base blueprint and go to the very top. You see where it says create child blueprint class? Let's click on that. And it creates a child, which is, or child blueprint. I messed it up on Friday. I asked the class, how do you make a child? And that was instead of how do you make a child blueprint? There's a big difference. You say, oh, if you don't already know, I'm not going to tell you. So let's call this BP underscore. Let's do speed boost. Okay. So I'll double click on speed boost real quick. What do you see inside the viewport?
Box inside of speed.
It has all the same stuff as the parent does, right? That's pretty cool. Now over here on the left side, it's, what does it say in parentheses? Inherited. So his dad essentially has all the same stuff that he has, so it's inherited over here, but I can still add other stuff separately from the inherited stuff. For example, you know, if I wanted to make this look like a health pickup, I could add another static mesh and make this one smaller, make it look like a plus sign, right? And I can change out this. Let's make it a sphere this time. So if you click on the static mesh, let's click on the drop down. Let's do, I think it's, yeah, material sphere. So it looks different now. And then let's go to the graph. So this looks a little bit different than the other one, right? This says event begin play, parent begin play. Event actor begin overlap, parent actor begin overlap. Event tick, parent tick. So everything that the parent's doing, he will do as well because he's inheriting all that stuff. Now here's the cool part. You remember that node that we created, the event called use pickup, and it was empty? We can override that here for every single child that we create based off of this, and they can all be different. So this is a speed boost, so let's go over here to where it says override. So override's next to functions. So you can create your own functions, your own variable types, you know, those little pins that we used, and you can plug them into the little nodes, little pins. We're going to do override, and we're going to use the one that says use pickup. So click on that. Yes.
It's a little bit behind. Get this guy. Get static mesh materials.
Oh, you can click on that little.
This one.
Yeah.
And then where are we going?
We are going into the graph,
Here?
and then we're clicking on override next to functions, and then click the one that says use pickup, the one that we made in the parent. So instead of doing what the parent was originally going to do, we're going to override it, we're going to rebel, and do our own thing. That's basically what that is.
Should we call it teenager then?
It's called Teenager Blueprint. I do what I want. Okay, so use pickup. So we're gonna say what it wants to do now. So let's do this. Let's pull out a pin. Let's type in yes. Which one? You don't have the override option for use pickup? Which blueprint are you on? Are you on the child? Yes. Make sure that on your pickup base, the other one, the parent, make sure you hit compile. And then make sure that you have this. I right-clicked in the background, custom event. Click on that and type use pickup. And then drag a pin off of true that says use pickup and hit compile, and it should show up now inside of your child. Okay, if you guys hear, let's type in cast to third person character. I'll go back here real quick. Oh, you got it? Yeah, override, use pickup. Good. So, cast third person character. What do we put into here? That object? What do we put into here? No. The speed boost? No.
Pick up there.
The player. Now, there's two ways that you can do this. There's a way of explicitly telling it to do something, and then implicitly. So, I'm going to use the explicit option, which is just tell the player 1 outright, do this. Get player pawn. That's player number 1. The other way of doing this is to add a little pin here that we hook up object to, and then on the parent, when it says use pickup, we'll put in the other actor straight into there. So whatever he is, I'll tell this to do it as well. Okay, so as third person character, let's type in, I think it's movement. Is that it? I want to check and make sure this is the right one. Character movement, that's what it is. Get character movement. We're going to use, this is a component that's built into the engine. It's on our third person character. And we're going to use it to tell how fast we want the character to move now. Get character movement. So in blueprints and in code, we have things that are called setters and getters. That's probably one of the first things that you learn in a programming class. If you want to set a value, you drag in something and you type in the value, or you set it to something else. A getter is when you pull a pin off of something and you're trying to access that information and see what it is, see what's inside. This is the same thing as like double clicking on a folder to access the folders that are inside of it. So we're say, hey, third person character, go grab this component right here, character movement, and we would like to set your max walk speed. Does anybody know what the regular walk speed of the character is off by default? 600. So if you want to change your character base movement speed, you can go to the character and go to the movement component and find the max walk speed and change that. But we're going to leave it 600 for now. And in here, what do you think our speed boost speed should be?
1200?
1200? 9001? 1200? Double the speed? And then what do you think we should do after you use the speed boost? After you interact with it?
1200.
You should die. You run around really fast and then you pass out. Yeah. There we go. We should probably get rid of the pickup, right? So after that, let's type in destroy actor. And the actor target, it says self. So after the character, third person character picks up the speed boost, it should go away. It should be destroyed. And then compile and save. I'll leave that there for just a second. See if I can put this all on one screen. Hit compile. Now let's drag this into the level. And I'm going to get rid of the pickup base ones that are here. So we don't actually place those in the scene. We're going to place these. So technically, if we hit play, what happened?
The original effect is still in play.
Yeah, that's still running, right? So we probably have to go turn it off. Make sure your speed boost is hooked up here. these two wires. Just because you add a node, you're like, hey, I added a node, and you don't hook it up, not gonna do anything.
Exactly like if a trailer.
That happens all the time. People are like, why is my code working? It's like, well, did you hook it up? Well, no.
Exactly like with a trailer, you can hook up all the wires you need to attach it to your truck, but unless you do the hitch, it won't work.
That's very true. So on a third-person character, I'm going to do this. I'm going to unhook these two right here. So wherever your third-person character is, just go to the graph, the event graph. And you can hold Alt on your keyboard, and then left-click on any pin, and it'll unhook it, right?
Oh.
So that's how you unhook.
Right.
And then we're going to move begin play over here. I'm going to delete delay. And I'm going to delete death over here on this side. And we're going to do this. Yes.
How do you delete your bar that's connecting to?
If you hold Alt and left click on the node, on the pin. There you go. And then I moved this stuff around.
He's not able to get max walk speed set on his video mount.
Did you cast a third person character?
Yeah.
You have to do it from here. It doesn't exist on here like this. Yeah, set max walk speed. Alright, so we kind of rearranged those nodes at the top, right? So instead of it happening on when the game starts, it happens when this event is called here. Compile, save. Now let's go to the content browser again. And let's do this. Let's right click on the pickup base. Let's make another child. We'll call this BP underscore. I don't know, this is going to hurt the player, so I'm going to call it ouch. So it's a bad pickup, I guess. It's like the bad mushrooms in Mario. Okay, so pickup base, right click, create child, and then double click on ouch, or whatever you called yours. It has the same stuff as the parent, correct? Let's go to the graph. Same stuff as the parent, right? Now, how do we get it to do something different? What do we override?
Event active begin overlap.
Nope.
Override use pickup.
Yes. Override use pickup. So we can do something different here. This is why we have that parent-child system. So we don't ever have to create all the, the sphere and add static meshes and stuff. We can just do it once. And then we can override it here. So I'm going to let you guys figure out how do we tell the player to run that death event from this pin right here. How do we tell the player to run that event where it says death? Why don't you guys try to figure that out, and then I'll finish it on here.
So, I got stuck first.
Okay, go to the character. And we're going to unhook that. Alt, left click. Alt, left click. There we go. Good. And move that up here. Get rid of the delay. Delete. Get rid of that. we overwrite the other one? Which one do we use? What event do we have? Use pickup. Okay. So now everybody's trying to figure out how do we tell the player to take damage or to die. Can we figure it out? Mm-hmm. Did anybody figure it out? You figured it out? Ooh. Oh, you're so close. So close. Almost. Almost. Oh man, you're close. You're so close. You're missing one thing. This will never run. Self does not have a death function. This is asking a reference to third person character. Where's third person character?
Target character move.
Right, but this is not hooked up to that. Where does it say third person character? Compile it. Save it. And then go to the map and then drag it in. See if that works. I think we got it though. Hey, we got something. We got it. So what did we do? What is your name? John. John? What did we do to get that to work?
So you attach to that node to cast a third-person character,
Okay.
and then you made the object node to get players on,
Good.
and then you attach like the other node to death. There you go.
Very nice. Now there is one thing missing, but it's kind of sort of a minor thing.
Yeah, I did all that stuff and it didn't work.
Did you add it to the map?
Yeah.
You added it to the level? You might check and make sure that your third person character is set up like this.
Wait a minute. Accidentally,
Did you drag in the base instead? Yeah, okay. That's probably why. If you drag in the base, it's not going to do anything. What do we do after we hit the pickup, though? What should it do? Destroy actor. And if you want to, because this looks exactly like the base, you could change some of the properties, right? So if after you have all this, you could go to the viewport and swap out the static mesh. See if there's anything interesting in here. What looks dangerous?
Pyramid.
A pyramid.
A dog.
A duck. Okay. So here we go. I'm gonna get rid of these guys. So there's our speed boost. Here's a couple of ouch. Not technically pickups, but they work the same way. If I avoid these, move really fast, and then he's still trying to move even though he can't move around. Oh, if it happens before you interact with the pickup, make sure that your logic for the third person character is not running on begin play. Yeah, right here. There you go. And then get rid of delay. Just left click on it. You can do that. Drag these up here. Yeah, because we didn't tell it to stop moving.
So just like this.
We gotta put that this way here.
This one.
Left to right. I'm just gonna move these pants straighten out like that. There you go. Okay. Yes, you can. You can change whatever you want. Which one? EP ouch. It's this one. There we go. Yes.
It might be a very fun version. Just run and run and keep going.
Because that's that double the speed. Hit that object.
Like 99 every time you fail.
Should be as well.
One chance.
Double the speed. Is the
Lose
regular
one life.
the regular You beat on like Sonic.
My mom actually played. And she played Bubble League, which is basically like Candy Crush, but
What do you mean? Does like when he hits the
to be fair, they're in there.
like they're the third person character.
They even have an outfit blueprint range. That'd be hilarious. We have that model.
Trying to find
This one? What do you mean out? It's called death. It's you have to do
I don't have
person character and drag out, and it should just type in death.
Everybody got that to work? Just about?
Is there a way like to where they have proximity, but like if one blows up, the other one blows up next to it without being touched? Is that like a proximity or collision thing?
You could do that.
That's funny.
So, it only gets more complex from here, but you can basically tell any of these actors, any of these components to do whatever you can think of. Last week, we did a demonstration like this, and somebody figured out how to ragdoll only from the torso down, so they made a drunk simulator, because the character's walking around like this, right? And when he ran into something, he would fall over, so the sky's the limit. You can create whatever you can think of. You just gotta, if you don't know what nodes you're looking for, just right-click and search them. You can have the blueprints talk to each other. That's casting. There's other ways that you can send messages to blueprints. There's something called interfaces. And just think about, before you start creating stuff, as how you want to organize each type of logic. So, like we did with the inheritance stuff, we had a base class. Is it your best interest to do it something like that and put all those things into one for something like pickups? Or if you had a weapon-based class or a vehicle or something, you create all the variables that you can think of that would go into that. And if it's something very specific, you would put it into the child, right? And that is how you use blueprints. Good? All right. Let's see how fast the character can move if somebody sets it to like 9,000 or something. It's like,
I'm down.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Guys, say thanks to Josh.
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, he teaches level design 1 and 2 class, so he'll teach you guys how to do like artificial intelligence and stuff like that too, which is pretty cool.